So Micah Evelyn Branch resides in Moncton, New Brunswick, where she attends middle school. Having a Dutch mother and a French-speaking father, she learned to speak 3 languages at a young age and soon discovered a passion for reading and writing. Micah's first book, I should have double-checked this with you, Caligari Cliffs, started out as a personal summer project she wrote at age 10. Caligari Cliffs was published by Redemption House Publishing in April 2013, and to date has sold nearly 1,000 copies. Sisters of Serena, also written by Micah, is a self-published young adult novel. Due to the success of her books, as well as to her on-stage presence, Micah is often called upon as a motivational speaker for small and large audiences. Micah also offers creative writing coaching for children and preteens and writes for a bi-monthly magazine about off-grid living. So please join me in welcoming Micah.
I can only do one. So I'm going to try to do this without my notes. I wrote the speech about a month ago, so bear with me. When I was 8 years old, I had my own island. It wasn't an actual island, sadly, just a small mound of land a bit higher than the river around it. Micah's Island, I called it. Mine. That island was the object of many summer and fall days spent exploring the forest around me, imagining. Even though it was maybe 3 meters by 3 meters, I was going to put a house there and put a fireplace right in the middle and get water from the river and never leave. I think those days on my island were the days when I first fell in love with being outside. Such a big and scary place, the outdoors. A world where there are no limits, no reasons to stop but your own inhibitions. It's not easy living this way, but so many people love it. It's a global movement now, living off-grid, living without being tied into a city's electricity or water, keeping a house managed and functioning on your own, but not living alone. No, there is a huge community out there for living self-sustainably. There are blogs about it, magazines, events like this. I'm currently one of the writers for one such magazine, a bi-monthly magazine called Off-Grid East Coast. It was originally only online, but has exploded in the past year, so now there are over 5,000 copies around the province. It's amazing how many people our words can reach. Bi-monthly, I figure out a topic that relates to the issue's theme, whether it be winter or the changing climate. I've written on everything from being the first people legally in Moncton to own chickens in our city backyard to coexisting with beavers. That was a fun one. I recently wrote one article on the importance of teaching children to appreciate nature, something very important to the future of self-sustainability. For me, it was living in a cabin in the woods that first got me to start to learn to love nature. For others, it was probably the same, being raised away from all the hassle and movement that comes with the city. Couple that with having 2 very nature-focused parents interested in possibly building a passive solar house. And that was how I first got started writing in the magazine. Oh, thank you, Mom. That's a bit of what I wrote about in my magazine article. I write in the magazine article because if there is one thing I love more than being outdoors, it's writing. I don't know why, but I'm a writer. It's what I do. It's my calling, if you want to be that introspective. There's something about creating worlds with just a pencil and paper that I'm addicted to. It's amazing what you can do. And once I realized that I can put those 2 things together, writing and being outdoors, and combine them, I was very, very excited, to say the least. It began with my first novel, Caligari Cliffs. I have it here. Didn't come prepared at first. Caligari Cliffs, my first novel. I was inspired to write this after a class field trip to the Hopewell Rocks. For those of you who don't know, the Hopewell Rocks is part of the Bay of Fundy, and it has one of the highest tides in the world. So you can walk on the ocean floor where you kayaked a few hours earlier. Couple that with the amazing wildlife they have there. And when I went, those rock formations and caves were so inspiring that I wrote about it. Just a small story. 2 girls get lost in a magic cave. I called it Caligari Cliffs, the hidden world. I had no idea what I was doing. But since then, it's exploded and I have over 1,000 copies sold. Well, nearly 1,000 copies, getting towards my goal. But I wanted more. I wanted to do it again. At this point, my parents had bought some land, many acres of forests and fields. The forests in some areas had been cut 20 years ago and were just beginning to grow back, new and full of life, just coming back. And in some places, it had been too hilly to cut, too many mountains and streams and rocks, too dangerous. And the trees are over hundreds of years old there, reaching up with their knobby hands towards the sky. It was amazing being there. I tried to imagine, what would it be like to live there? To live without fresh packaged food or plumbing and frozen, being able to freeze things whenever you want. To live without a roof over your head. And because I am a fantasy writer, I wrote about 2 15-year-old girls doing it. Sisters. The Sisters of Serena. That's what I called their forest, Serena. The only home they've ever known. That's a little bit of a backstory for what the book is about, I guess. And it was inspired just by that land, just to start. And I wanted it to be a good story, and for it to be that, I had to do a lot of research. I had to learn about edible plants, building long-term shelters, navigating by the sun and stars. These are all things I learned through my writing. How to identify plants that were edible or not, making stews from natural herbs, those things. There is, excuse my metaphor, a vast sea of knowledge out there, just waiting to be learned, through books and online, through people's experience, through their stories and their ideas. And once I was able to access that knowledge, writing became a lot easier. So I do have my books with me for sale here today, and I'd like to do a bit of a reading just to show you guys how important wildlife was able to be featured into my writing. I have everyone here. I'm very proud I did not need to use my notes today. I memorized it all. So, Sisters of Serena, that's what it looks like, just so you know. I will be reading from chapter 10, page 73, if I remember correctly. At this point in the story, Ty, a young boy, finds himself lost in Serena with no way of getting back home to his city. He learns to work in the forest, to travel with the 2 sisters who are at the time looking for a new home after theirs is destroyed by a spring hurricane. So if I can find it here. Here we go. So I'll just read about a page or so. Chapter 10. Ty awoke to a dreary and wet dawn. His clothes were soaked with dew, and as he ran his fingers through his dark hair, he tried to muster the energy to get up. These last few days had been hard on him, burning energy all day long and hardly ever a meal to show for it. But when he tried to think of his life that he had had before meeting the sisters, the only thought he could muster was scorn at the people who lived such an easy life. I'm turning into a caveman, he thought, laughing dryly. He sat up and looked around. The forest was heavy with wetness, the air chilled with mist. Both girls were silent. Was it my watch? He wondered. But Sky lifted her head and nodded to him from her position leaning on the tree trunk. Good morning. Morning, he groaned, standing up. You on watch? Yes. You can sleep now if you'd like. I'll take over. Thank you, Ty. Sky sighed and rested her head on her shoulder. Ty walked over to where the fire had died and tried to coax a flame out of the wet coals, but the shreds of old man's beard just shriveled up and smoked. Let the sisters do it. For a while he sat and tried to wring the water out of his jacket, then put it back on for the cold. Feeling jittery, Ty paced around the fire pit, then sat down, then got up again. On the 4th time, Lara spoke behind him. Ty? "What are you doing?" He turned around and looked at Lara, who was sitting up, just walking around. "Has the sun rised yet?" "Risen. And no. Why?" "Good. It's time for us to move far away from here." And that's all I'm going to read. So the books are here for sale today. The money is going to my college education. Not sure what I'm going to do yet. Probably something with writing. So thank you guys so much for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So before we go though, how many books are you away from your goal of 1,000?
We have the last 30 of Caligari Cliffs, but they're not. But they're not here. They're sold out technically. We're keeping the last ones for ourselves to remember when we grew up. Hey, I still have some original copies. But for the second ones, how much do you think it would be, Mom?
We sold a couple of hundred now.
Yeah, we're very close.
Very close.
Very close.
I'm sure that we can help you in this room to get closer to your goal. I want to thank you so much. There's a little Sustaina-Palooza pack for you.
Wow. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.